My friends, whenever I teach on leadership, purpose, identity, or destiny, there is one truth I always return to, and that truth is this. You were never created to be ruled by emotions. You were created to rule beginning with yourself. That's the foundation of the kingdom. And I want you to hear me very carefully today, because if you don't understand this principle, life will keep defeating you in battles that were never yours to fight. Every day people are losing opportunities, not because they lack talent, not because they lack education, not because they lack potential, but because they cannot master their own emotional responses. You can be intelligent and still lose your destiny because of a moment of anger. You can be gifted and still sabotage your future with one emotional reaction. You can be anointed and still be disqualified because you never learned the principle of emotional dominion. Listen to me. Emotional control is not a personality trait. It is a kingdom requirement. When God created mankind, He gave us dominion, but the first territory He expected you to rule was not the earth, it was yourself. Before Adam could govern creation, he had to govern his mind, his decisions, his reactions, his emotions. And that hasn't changed. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. You cannot have dominion outward if you have no dominion inward. You cannot carry authority when your emotions carry you. The greatest enemies of your destiny are not around you, they are within you. And until you understand this, the devil doesn't have to defeat you. You will defeat yourself through anger, through offense, through insecurity, through emotional manipulation. But today, I came to give you understanding. Because what you don't understand, you cannot manage. What you cannot manage, you cannot control. And what you cannot control will always control you. The power to master your emotions is the power to master your life. When you become emotionally stable, you become spiritually dangerous. When you become emotionally grounded, you become mentally unshakable. When you become emotionally disciplined, you become relationally untouchable. People can no longer manipulate you. Circumstances can no longer intimidate you. Stress can no longer overwhelm you. Offense can no longer trap you. Why? Because emotional control places you back in the seat of kingdom authority. Listen carefully. You reveal who you truly believe you are by how you react. Every reaction is an announcement of your identity. Emotionally unstable people are confused about who they are. Emotionally reactive people are insecure about their purpose. Emotionally fragile people do not yet understand their value. But when you know who you are, when you understand your source, when you are rooted in your assignment, when your identity comes from the King, not from people, then someone can insult you and you won't flinch. Someone can betray you and you won't break. Someone can misunderstand you and you won't lose focus. Why? Because purpose becomes your emotional thermostat. Purpose determines what deserves a response and what doesn't. Purpose decides what disturbs you and what doesn't. I'm telling you today, your emotions were designed to serve your purpose, not sabotage it. Your feelings were designed to follow your identity, not define it. Your reactions were designed to reflect your principles, not your impulses. And until you master this, you cannot master life. You cannot govern a business if you cannot govern frustration. You cannot lead a family if you cannot lead your emotions. You cannot influence a generation if you can be triggered by comments. Leadership begins with self-leadership. Dominion begins with self-dominion. Kingdom authority begins with emotional authority. So today, we are going to explore 7 kingdom laws, 7 principles that will make you emotionally untouchable. I didn't say emotionless. You will still feel, but you will not be ruled by what you feel. Because the greatest power a human can possess is not the power to change others. It is the power to manage themselves. And when you master your emotions, you become unshakable, unmoved, uncontrolled, unmanipulated. A citizen of the kingdom who reflects the government of heaven within. That, my friends, is kingdom power. Now, before we go deeper into the 7 kingdom laws, we must first establish a foundation, because you cannot apply a law you don't understand. And what most people call emotional weakness, the Bible calls misunderstanding of dominion. My friends, listen to me carefully. You were never designed to be dominated by anything on earth. Not by fear, not by anger, not by pressure, not by anxiety, not by the opinions of people, not even by your own emotions. Dominion is not something you fight for. It is something you were born with. Emotional dominion is not an advanced spiritual skill. It is part of your original design. But here is the tragedy. Most people are living life upside down. They allow emotions to lead them where principles should guide them. They let feelings dictate decisions that only purpose should control. They permit reactions to govern moments that require wisdom. Whenever your emotions sit in the driver's seat, your destiny ends up in a ditch. So let's define this principle clearly. Emotional dominion is the ability to govern your internal world regardless of what is happening in your external world. I'll say it again, because repetition is the mother of understanding. Emotional dominion is ruling your inner environment so effectively that the outer environment cannot disturb your peace, distort your decisions, or derail your purpose. Now hear this. Emotional dominion is not emotional suppression. It is not pretending. It is not denial. It is not acting tough, being cold, or suppressing tears. No, no, no. Emotional suppression is weakness disguised as strength. Emotional dominion is strength dressed in wisdom. Suppressing emotions means you fear them. Dominating emotions means you understand them. Let me explain something powerful. Your emotions are good. God gave them to you. But emotions were never created to be leaders. They were created to be indicators. They reveal what's happening, but they are not qualified to decide what happens next. When an emotion becomes your decision maker, you have stepped out of dominion. You see, your emotions are wonderful servants, but they are dangerous masters. They can inform you, but they cannot instruct you. They can alarm you, but they cannot assign you. They can express you, but they cannot govern you. And this is why so many people live unstable lives. They confuse emotional expression with emotional leadership. They confuse feelings with truth. They confuse reactions with identity. But the kingdom doesn't function through emotions. It functions through principles. God runs the universe on laws, not feelings. Gravity works whether you are angry or happy. Seed time and harvest work whether you are fearful or bold. Dominion laws operate whether you feel worthy or not. So if God himself governs through principles, how do you expect to govern through emotions? No wonder people keep losing their peace. They're trying to lead with the wrong system. Now let me introduce you to the manufacturer's design principle, because Dr. Munroe never teaches without reminding you of this truth. Every product must be used according to the manufacturer's intention. If you misuse a product, not because the product is flawed, but because you misunderstood its design, you will always get malfunction. Many people are not broken. They are simply used incorrectly. Your emotions were designed to assist your purpose, not derail it. They were designed to support your decisions, not sabotage them. They were designed to amplify truth, not overpower it. When you don't know how something is designed, you misuse it. And when you misuse emotions, you lose dominion. Listen to me. What you don't understand, you cannot manage. What you cannot manage, you cannot control. What you cannot control will eventually control you. That's why the devil's greatest weapon isn't demons, it's ignorance. If the devil can keep you ignorant about your emotional design, he doesn't have to attack you. You will self-destruct. So emotional dominion begins with understanding. Understanding gives birth to management. Management produces mastery. Mastery leads to leadership. Leadership establishes dominion. This is why the Bible says, in all you're getting, get understanding. Not power, not money, not applause, not revenge, not validation, not emotional relief. Understanding. Because once you understand the purpose of emotions and the order of kingdom leadership, your internal world becomes untouchable. Storms may rage around you, but you remain steady. People may attack you, but you remain unmoved. Circumstances may shift, but you remain anchored. Chaos may surround you, but peace rules you. Emotional dominion is not the removal of storms. It is the establishment of calm within the storm. And from this point forward, Everything I teach you about emotional mastery will sit on this foundation. You cannot master your emotions until you first understand your design, your identity, and your purpose. Now that we've laid this foundation of understanding, we can go deeper. We can now explore the first of the 7 kingdom laws, the law of identity. Now let us begin with the first and most foundational of all the kingdom laws of emotional mastery, the law of identity. And I want you to hear this with the ears of your heart. You always react according to who you believe you are. Not according to what happened, not according to what someone said, not according to circumstances, not according to external pressure. Your reactions are rooted in your internal identity. And this is why so many people live emotionally fragile lives. It's not because the world is too harsh. It's not because people are too difficult. It's not because life is too stressful. It's because they do not yet know who they are. My friends, your emotional instability is not a feelings problem. It is an identity problem. Whenever a person does not know who they are, they become vulnerable to emotional manipulation. They become sensitive to rejection. They become addicted to approval. They become wounded by opinions. They become controlled by criticism. They become weakened by comparison. Why? Because identity is the foundation of emotional strength. Let me teach you a principle that you must never forget. Identity determines reaction. A lion does not respond like a cat. A king does not behave like a slave. A leader does not react like a follower. Every creature reacts according to its nature. Every human reacts according to their identity. And this is why people are so easily offended. You can only offend a person who does not yet know their value. People who don't know who they are will always require external validation to feel secure. And anything that threatens that false security triggers emotional chaos. But when you know your identity, when you are rooted in your purpose, when you're anchored in your source, when you understand your design, then no insult, no comment, no betrayal, no misunderstanding, no pressure, no disappointment can shake the core of who you are. Identity makes you emotionally untouchable. You see, the kingdom does not teach emotional detachment. It teaches emotional authority. And authority begins with identity. Identity answers the questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What was I designed to be? What is my value? What is my purpose? Who defines me? Let me tell you something powerful that I have taught for over 40 years. Whatever defines you controls you. Whatever names you shapes you. Whatever informs you forms you. If people define you, people will control you. If society defines you, society will imprison you. If emotions define you, emotions will govern you. If circumstances define you, circumstances will dictate your destiny. But if God defines you, if purpose defines you, if your divine assignment defines you, then nothing on earth can rule you. I want you to imagine something with me. Picture a king walking through a marketplace in ancient times. People shout, people argue, people insult, people complain. The king hears it all, but he responds to none of it. Why? Because responding to noise would make him equal to the noise. Hear me. Reacting to everything lowers you to the level of what you're reacting to. A king never comes down from his throne to argue with peasants. A lion doesn't roar back at barking dogs. An eagle doesn't chase flies. When you know who you are, you don't descend into emotional battles that don't align with your identity. This is why Jesus could remain silent before his accusers. This is why Joseph could endure betrayal without bitterness. This is why David could ignore Saul's jealousy. This is why Nehemiah refused to come down from the wall. Identity produces discipline. Discipline produces emotional clarity. Clarity produces emotional strength. Emotional strength produces leadership. Leadership produces dominion. This is why the enemy's primary attack is always identity. Before he tempted Jesus with bread, before he tempted him with kingdoms, before he tempted him with miracles, he attacked his identity. If you are the Son of God, the devil knew if he could shake Jesus' identity, he could shake his emotions. If he could shake his emotions, he could shake his decisions. If he could shake his decisions, he could derail his purpose. Satan does not want your emotions. He wants your identity. Because identity is the control center of your emotional world. Let me give you a kingdom key. You cannot control your emotions until you first control your identity. You cannot manage your reactions until you know your value. You cannot govern your inner world until you know your source. So how do you strengthen your identity? Return to your source who made you, defines you. Anchor in purpose your assignment, reveals your value. Affirm your design. You are not a mistake. You are intentional. Reject false naming. Refuse labels that do not match your destiny. Build self-awareness. Understand your strengths, weaknesses, triggers, patterns. Adopt a kingdom mindset. You are royalty, not emotional prey. When identity is clear, emotions fall in line. Reactions become disciplined. Decisions become wise. Life becomes focused. Purpose becomes unstoppable. This is the first law, because without identity, every other emotional law collapses. Now that you understand the law of identity, we can move forward to the next kingdom principle. The law of purpose, which explains why purpose makes you immune to emotional distractions. Now that we have laid the foundation of identity, we can move to the next great pillar of emotional mastery, the second kingdom law, which is the law of purpose. If the first law tells you who you are, the second law tells you why you are here. And I want you to hear me with your spirit today, because this is one of the most important truths you will ever learn. Purpose makes you immune to emotional distractions. When a person does not know their purpose, they become emotionally available to everything. Every criticism affects them. Every delay frustrates them. Every disagreement offends them. Every disappointment discourages them. Every rejection weakens them. Why? Because without purpose, life becomes a series of emotional reactions instead of intentional responses. Purpose is the filter through which emotionally stable people interpret life. You see, my friends, life does not become easier. Purpose simply gives you something worth enduring difficulty for. And when you discover purpose, everything changes. Not outside you, but inside you. Let me explain something you must never forget. Purpose produces discipline. Discipline produces emotional clarity. Emotional clarity produces peace. Peace produces influence. Influence produces leadership. This is why a person of purpose cannot be easily manipulated. Purpose makes you selective. Purpose makes you patient. Purpose makes you calm. Purpose makes you strategic. Purpose makes you focused. Purpose makes you wise. Let me give you a practical definition of purpose in kingdom terms. Purpose is the original intent of a thing in the mind of the Creator. It means you are not born to react. You were born to fulfill something. And until you discover that something, your emotions will continue to run your life. Let me illustrate this with a principle that has governed my teaching for decades. When you don't know the purpose of something, you will always abuse it. This includes relationships, time, opportunities, and yes, even emotions. Without purpose, emotions become weapons against your future. But with purpose, emotions become tools to help you complete your assignment. Purpose doesn't remove feelings. Purpose organizes feelings. Purpose doesn't stop storms. Purpose anchors you in storms. Purpose doesn't silence critics. Purpose silences your need to respond to them. Purpose doesn't eliminate challenges. Purpose gives meaning to challenges. This is why emotionally unstable people aren't weak. They're simply directionless. Nothing stabilizes emotions like direction. When a person wakes up knowing, I am here to accomplish something the earth needs, their emotions suddenly fall into alignment. You don't have time to fight with fools when you're building a future. You don't have time to chase validation when you're chasing your assignment. You don't have time to engage in petty arguments when your destiny requires focus. You don't have time to react to everything when God has called you to something. Let me show you how purpose works as an emotional filter. When someone insults you, purpose asks, does this matter to my assignment? When someone fights you, purpose asks, will this affect my mission? When someone misunderstands you, purpose asks, Is this worth my peace? When fear tries to paralyze you, purpose asks, does this fear align with my destiny? Purpose gives you emotional boundaries. Purpose gives you emotional priorities. Purpose gives you emotional intelligence. This is why Jesus could ignore the criticism of the Pharisees. He wasn't insecure. He was focused. He didn't come to argue. He came to accomplish. He didn't come to please people. He came to fulfill purpose. Nehemiah said it best. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Every emotionally unstable person keeps coming down. Coming down to argue. Coming down to prove themselves. Coming down to defend their ego. Coming down to fight meaningless battles. Purpose eliminates the need for emotional involvement in things that don't advance your destiny. Now let me give you what I call the kingdom assignment filter. This is a tool I teach leaders all over the world. Before reacting, ask one simple question. Does this serve my purpose? If the answer is no, you ignore it. You release it. You walk away from it. You refuse to descend to it. And the moment you do this, your life becomes peaceful. When purpose becomes your emotional compass, storms don't shake you, people don't move you, and opinions don't define you. You become stable, steady, focused, productive, composed, unshakable. Because purpose becomes your anchor, and an anchored soul is a powerful soul. So before you can master emotional control, you must rediscover, refine, and reaffirm your purpose. Not your job, not your role, not your circumstances, your purpose. If identity tells you who you are, purpose tells you why you must master your emotions. Now that we understand the power of purpose and emotional dominance, we are ready to move into the next section, the law of priorities. Why only people with emotional order can live with emotional peace. Now that we have dealt with identity and purpose, we can move deeper into the next law that governs emotional mastery in the kingdom. The law of priorities. My friends, hear me very carefully, because this is one of the most misunderstood and most violated principles in human life. Where there is no order, there will always be emotional chaos. Many people don't have emotional problems. They have priority problems. Their emotions aren't breaking them. Their disorder is life becomes stressful not because you are weak, but because you are trying to give equal emotional energy to things that are not equal in value. A person who does not prioritize their internal world will always live in emotional exhaustion. And this is why the kingdom insists on order. Our God is a God of structure, alignment, and clarity. If you study creation, you will discover that God never initiates purpose without first establishing order. Chaos is not from God. Disorder is not from God. Confusion is not from God. Emotional overwhelm is not from God. These are signs that your life has not yet submitted to the law of priorities. Let me show you a principle that can transform your emotional world instantly. You cannot control everything. You are not required to control everything. And you are not designed to care about everything. People who care about everything react to everything. People who react to everything become emotionally drained. People who are emotionally drained lose focus. People who lose focus lose purpose. People who lose purpose lose peace. That is the progression of emotional collapse. Now hear this next line clearly, because I believe it is prophetic for someone listening. Your peace is not being stolen. You are giving it away to things that don't deserve it. You are spending emotional energy on matters that do not carry eternal value. You are investing emotional passion into things that will not matter in 5 years, 5 months, or even 5 minutes. You must learn, like every great leader, to prioritize your emotional spending. There are 3 categories of emotional investment, and I want you to write these on the tablets of your heart. 1. What deserves your full attention? These are your top priorities. Your purpose, your assignment, your health, your divine relationships, your spiritual life. These things deserve emotional engagement. 2. What deserves only observation? These are things you watch but you do not carry. People's opinions, social noise, unnecessary conflict, incidental frustrations, situations you cannot control. These deserve awareness, not emotional involvement. 3. What deserves disconnection? These are things that drain you, weaken you, distract you, or corrupt your peace. Toxic people, drama-filled environments, cycles of conflict, emotional manipulation, comparisons, unproductive conversations. These do not deserve your energy at all. This is called emotional budgeting. And every wise person knows how to budget their emotions the same way they budget their finances. You cannot pour from an empty emotional tank. You cannot lead with a depleted soul. You cannot fulfill destiny while drowning in distractions. Let me tell you something the Holy Spirit taught me years ago. Not every call is your assignment. Not every voice is your responsibility. Not every problem is your problem. Not every battle is your fight. Emotionally weak people say yes to everything because they want approval, because they fear rejection, because they crave validation, because they don't know their priorities. Emotionally strong people say yes to purpose and no to distraction. Let me show you how this works in real life. When you know your priorities, you stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't want clarity. You stop chasing relationships that drain you. You stop defending yourself against rumors. You stop participating in emotional chaos. Why? Because your priority is your assignment, not your image. Your mission, not your ego. Your calling, not your criticism. Your destiny, not your distractions. Let me give you a kingdom truth that will change the way you interpret emotional challenges. Every attack on your peace is an attack on your priorities. If the devil cannot destroy you, he will distract you. If he cannot weaken your purpose, he will weaken your focus. If he cannot break your spirit, he will overload your emotions. If he cannot remove your destiny, he will clutter your path. That's why you must build emotional order. Clear boundaries, clear focus, clear structure. And let me say this plainly. As I have taught many leaders across the world, you cannot do everything, but you must do the right things. This is emotional maturity. So how do you restore emotional order? Write down your top 3 life priorities. Identify the emotional drains in your life. Remove emotional access from anything that doesn't align with your assignment. Reorganize your day around purpose, not pressure. Guard your peace like it is the most expensive possession you have, because it is. Once priorities are established, peace becomes natural, not forced, not fragile. Natural. And when priorities are clear, emotional control becomes easier, because you finally understand not everything deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your reaction. Not every event deserves your presence. This is the law of priorities. The law that protects your emotional world by ordering your internal world. Now that your emotional priorities are set, we can move into the next law, the law of focus, which explains why whatever holds your attention holds your emotions. Now that we have established identity, purpose, and priorities, we move deeper into a law that controls the flow of your emotional life more than most people realize. The law of focus. My friends, hear me. Whatever holds your focus holds your emotions. Whatever holds your emotions holds your decisions. Whatever holds your decisions controls your destiny. This is why the enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He only needs to distract you. Distraction is more lethal than opposition. Opposition strengthens you. Distraction weakens you. Opposition builds spiritual muscle. Distraction drains emotional energy. Opposition makes you pray. Distraction makes you busy. The devil doesn't fear a busy person. He fears a focused person, because focus is the birthplace of emotional control. Let me show you something powerful. Your emotions do not follow events. They follow your interpretation of events. And your interpretation is shaped by your focus. If you focus on what is wrong, you will feel discouraged. If you focus on who hurt you, you will feel bitter. If you focus on what you lost, you will feel defeated. If you focus on what you fear, you will feel anxious. If you focus on what is uncertain, you will feel unstable. But if you shift your focus, everything shifts. Focus turns storms into classrooms. Focus turns betrayal into redirection. Focus turns pressure into strength. Focus turns fear into clarity. Focus turns waiting into preparation. You do not change your emotions by fighting them. You change them by redirecting your focus. Emotions are not leaders, they are followers. They follow your focus. Let me give you an analogy. I've taught in leadership sessions around the world. Where your eyes go, your life goes. Where your attention goes, your emotions flow. Where your focus goes, your energy grows. You cannot focus on gratitude and feel depressed. You cannot focus on purpose and feel lost. You cannot focus on God's faithfulness and feel hopeless. You cannot focus on your assignment and feel worthless. Your emotional condition is the evidence of your internal focus. Here is a kingdom revelation you must never forget. Your mind is the womb of your emotions. Whatever you conceive through focus is birthed as a feeling. Let me explain. A thought becomes meditation. Meditation becomes emotion. Emotion becomes mood. Mood becomes temperament. Temperament becomes behavior. Behavior becomes habit. Habit becomes character. Character becomes destiny. Your entire destiny begins with focus. This is why the Bible says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Not as he feels. Not as he reacts. Not as he struggles. As he thinks. Thought is focus. Focus shapes emotion. Now let me show you the difference between emotionally weak people and emotionally strong people. Emotionally weak people focus on what they cannot control. Emotionally strong people focus on what they can control. Emotionally weak people focus on people. Emotionally strong people focus on principles. Emotionally weak people focus on the problem. Emotionally strong people focus on purpose. Emotionally weak people focus on the past. Emotionally strong people focus on the future. Emotionally weak people focus on opinions. Emotionally strong people focus on identity. Emotionally weak people focus on noise. Emotionally strong people focus on assignment. Where focus goes, strength grows. Let me teach you the focus filter, one of the greatest secrets to emotional control. Before you give anything attention, ask, does this matter to my purpose, my peace, or my destiny? If it does not pass that test, it does not deserve your focus. You create emotional stability by creating focus boundaries. Let me give you practical kingdom strategies. 1. Practice intentional silence. Silence reveals your priorities. Silence calms your emotional system. Silence strengthens identity. Silence opens spiritual clarity. This is why leaders withdraw to think, because focus requires quiet. 2. Refuse mental multitasking. Multitasking is a myth. You cannot give full emotional energy to many things at once. Fragmented focus produces fragmented emotions. 3. Protect your mental environment. Your focus follows your input. Whatever you consume, voices, conversations, images, conflicts, will eventually shape your emotions. 4. Guard your imagination. Your imagination is your emotional engine. What you picture internally becomes what you feel externally. 5. Choose your battles deliberately. Not everything deserves your focus. Some things deserve silence. Some things deserve distance. Some things deserve disinterest. Now listen carefully to this conclusion of the law. Your emotions will always follow your focus. So if you want to change your emotional life, you must first change your focus life. This is the law of focus. The law that teaches you how to direct your emotional energy with kingdom precision. And now that we've strengthened your focus, we can move into the next law. The law of self-government, which reveals why emotional control is the first test of true leadership. Now we come to one of the most important laws in the kingdom. A law that separates leaders from followers, rulers from reactors, visionaries from victims. This is the law of self-government. And I want to say this with all the clarity God has given me. Emotional control is the first test of leadership. You cannot lead a family if you cannot lead yourself. You cannot lead a team if you cannot lead your emotions. You cannot lead a company, a ministry, a movement, or a generation if you cannot govern your internal world. Hear this. The summit of kingdom leadership is self-mastery. Before God gives you influence, before God gives you territory, before God gives you position, before God gives you authority over others, He will test your authority over yourself. Let me repeat that. God will never give you external authority until you demonstrate internal authority. This is why the greatest battlefield of leadership is not the boardroom, not the stage, not the ministry, not the culture, not the marketplace. It is the battlefield of your own soul, your emotions, your impulses, your triggers, your appetites, your reactions. This is the arena where true leadership is proven. You see, emotional instability is not a feelings problem. It is a government problem. If you cannot govern yourself, you are not qualified to govern anything else. Let me give you a kingdom principle that every great leader must know. Leadership is not domination of others. It is dominion over self. And emotional maturity is the evidence of self-government. Now let me break this down the way I teach leaders across the world. Self-government has 4 pillars. 1. Self-awareness. This is the knowledge of your internal world. You cannot govern what you cannot see. Self-awareness means you know your triggers. You know your patterns. You know your weaknesses. You know your pressure points. You know your emotional tendencies. You know your vulnerabilities. Weak people deny their weaknesses. Wise people identify them. Strong people govern them. Self-awareness is not weakness. It is leadership. 2. Self-discipline. If self-awareness shows you what needs governing, self-discipline governs it. Self-discipline means you choose principles over impulses. You respond rather than react. You decide from identity, not emotion. You act from purpose, not pressure. Self-discipline is the power to tell yourself no when emotions say yes. Let me tell you something. Self-discipline is the measurement of your maturity, not your age. 3. Self-correction. Every great leader corrects themselves before life has to correct them. Immature people justify their reactions. Emotionally mature people adjust them. Self-correction means you apologize quickly. You realign swiftly. You refine your behavior. You take responsibility. You learn from triggers. You grow from mistakes. A leader who cannot correct themselves is a leader headed toward collapse. 4. Self-respect. This is the foundation of emotional strength. Self-respect means I refuse to behave beneath my identity. I refuse to react beneath my dignity. I refuse to speak beneath my wisdom. I refuse to engage beneath my assignment. Self-respect is the emotional boundary that protects your purpose. When you respect who you are, you do not allow emotions to drag you into attitudes, arguments, or actions that contradict your identity. Let me illustrate this with one of my favorite analogies. A king does not raise his voice in the marketplace. Why? Because to lose control is to lose credibility. A king governs his emotions publicly and privately. So hear this clearly. A person who cannot govern their emotions cannot be trusted with power. A person who can govern their emotions cannot be stopped by anything. That is self-government. Now let me summarize the law. Self-government produces emotional order. Emotional order produces emotional strength. Emotional strength produces credibility. Credibility produces influence. Influence produces leadership. Leadership produces dominion. This is the progression of a great leader. Your greatest victory is not winning arguments, not proving people wrong, not overpowering adversaries, not silencing critics. Your greatest victory is winning over yourself. The moment you can govern yourself, you become unstoppable, unshakable, unbothered, unmanipulated. A true leader in the kingdom of God. Now that you have mastered the law of self-government, we can move into the next laws. The law of honor and the law of legacy. These two laws show why emotional control is not only about the moment, It is about your character and the story you leave behind. Now we arrive at the final 2 laws of emotional mastery. 2 laws that elevate you from personal discipline to generational influence. These are the laws that determine not only how you live, but how you will be remembered. The first is the law of honor. And the second is the law of legacy. Let us begin with honor. Kingdom law, #6, the law of honor. Everything in the kingdom rises and falls on honor. Honor is the environment where greatness grows. Honor is the climate where wisdom flows. Honor is the posture that unlocks authority. But most importantly, honor is the gatekeeper of emotional control. Listen to me. You cannot maintain emotional stability without honor. Why? Because honor is the internal code that governs your responses. Honor means I treat you based on my character, not your behavior. I respond from principle, not from provocation. I speak from wisdom, not from woundedness. I rise above the offense because of who I am, not what you did. Honor is not about the other person. Honor is about preserving your dignity, your peace, your integrity, your identity. Let me show you something powerful. Dishonor makes people emotionally reactive. When you lack honor, you argue quickly, you attack quickly, you assume quickly, you explode quickly. People who dishonor others always live in emotional turbulence because dishonor is rooted in insecurity. But honor stabilizes the soul. Honor calms the spirit. Honor protects the heart. Honor elevates your responses. Honor says, I will not let your behavior drag me out of my purpose. I will not allow your words to dictate my character. I will remain principled even if you remain problematic. Honor is spiritual maturity demonstrated through emotional discipline. Let me tell you something deep. Honor is the emotional boundary that keeps your reactions aligned with your calling. When you walk in honor, you stop fighting battles that do not belong to your assignment. When you walk in honor, you stop lowering yourself to conversations beneath your destiny. When you walk in honor, you stop reacting as a slave and begin responding as royalty. Honor gives you emotional elevation. Now let us transition into a law that takes you beyond the moment. A law that moves your life from reactions to results. This is the law of legacy. Kingdom law #7, the law of legacy. Legacy is the story your life writes after you are gone. Legacy is the imprint your behavior leaves on others. Legacy is the echo of your decisions across time. Legacy is the inheritance of your character. And I want to give you a truth that few people understand. Your emotions shape your legacy. How you react today becomes the testimony people tell tomorrow. How you handle pressure becomes the memory your family carries. How you manage conflict becomes the example your children follow. How you treat people becomes the standard others expect from you. How you respond to pain becomes the pattern that influences future generations. Every emotional reaction is a building block in the architecture of your legacy. You think your emotions only affect the moment, but they are writing your future. They are shaping your leadership. They are defining your credibility. They are constructing the reputation that outlives you. Your emotional habits become your historical record. This is why emotionally reactive people rarely leave strong legacies. They undermine trust, damage relationships, break alliances, destroy opportunities, crush influence, and limit their future. But emotionally disciplined people, they build a legacy of wisdom, a legacy of peace, a legacy of leadership, a legacy of strength, a legacy of dignity. Hear this clearly. Legacy is not built in great moments. It is built in consistent emotional decisions. Your children won't remember the job you had. They will remember the environment you created. They won't remember your paycheck. They will remember your patience. They won't remember every word you said. They will remember how you behaved when you were angry, tired, pressured, or disappointed. Your legacy begins with your emotional world. This is why I tell leaders everywhere, the greatest gift you can give to your future is emotional control. Because emotional mastery produces trust, respect, stability, consistency, credibility, wisdom, and these become the pillars of legacy. So let me give you a kingdom question that will transform the way you react. How will this reaction look in the story of my life? If your reaction will diminish your legacy, it is not worth expressing. If your reaction will stain your character, it is not worth releasing. If your reaction will damage your future, it is not worth responding. Remember, every moment is temporary, but every reaction is permanent. Honor protects your character. Legacy protects your future. Together, they protect your destiny. And now that we have established these two final laws, we can move into the conclusion, part 9, the outro, where we summarize the 7 laws and release the final kingdom charge that empowers you to walk in emotional dominion for the rest of your life. My friends, we have journeyed through 7 kingdom laws that govern emotional mastery. 7 principles that separate the unstable from the unstoppable. 7 truths that elevate ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. And now, as we close this teaching, I want to declare something over your life. You are designed to be emotionally untouchable. Not emotionless, not numb, not detached, but untouchable. Because nothing external should be able to govern your internal world. Your emotions were never meant to be dictators. They were meant to be indicators. They were never meant to rule. They were meant to serve. They were never meant to lead you. They were meant to follow your purpose. Let us remember the journey. 1. The law of identity. You learn that every reaction flows from who you believe you are. A person who knows their identity cannot be easily offended, manipulated, or destabilized. Identity is your emotional foundation. 2. The law of purpose. You discover that purpose is the filter that determines what deserves your emotional energy. Purpose makes you selective, focused, and unmoved by unnecessary battles. 3. The law of priorities. You learn that emotional chaos comes from disorder. And peace begins when you choose what matters, release what doesn't, and organize your soul around purpose. 4. The law of focus. You saw that emotions follow attention. Whatever dominates your focus will dominate your feelings. Focus is the steering wheel of the emotional life. 5. The law of self-government. You understood that the first assignment of leadership is not over people, it is over yourself. No one is qualified for influence until they have authority over their own emotions. 6. The law of honor. You learn that honor keeps your reactions aligned with your character and your calling. Honor elevates you above the noise and protects your dignity. 7. The law of legacy. You discovered that every emotional decision becomes part of the story you leave behind. Legacy is shaped by emotional consistency, not emotional chaos. My friends, hear this final kingdom truth. Emotional mastery is not about controlling your feelings. It is about understanding your identity, aligning with your purpose, ordering your priorities, guarding your focus, governing yourself, living with honor, and protecting your legacy. When these 7 laws are in place, your emotions fall into position. Your reactions become intentional. Your decisions become wise. Your relationships become healthier. Your peace becomes unshakable. Your leadership becomes credible. Your destiny becomes visible. And you become a stable soul, a grounded spirit, a focused mind, a disciplined leader, a kingdom citizen who reflects the government of heaven. This is what it means to be emotionally untouchable. Not because life is easy. Not because people are perfect, not because circumstances are smooth, but because your foundation is unshakable. Let me leave you with this prophetic charge. Guard your emotions, because they are the gates of your destiny. Master your reactions, because they are the evidence of your identity. Lead yourself well, because the world needs the leader within you. And above all, walk in dominion, live in purpose. Respond with wisdom, stand in honor. Build your legacy. Remember, before you rule anything in life, rule yourself. For this is the true beginning of kingdom power.